Welcome to the Strength Coach Collective. I'm your host, Connor Agnew, and on today's episode, we have Kyle Casey, a sport performance coach with Harvard Westlake. I tried out a new intro today. Let me know what you think if you have any strong opinions on it. But Kyle is, like I said, a sport performance coach with Harvard Westlake, which is a high school out in California. Our conversation was really interesting. I think one from his personal story and kind of his perseverance as a coach. I think a lot of coaches can relate to it where there's a lot of things or jobs that you have to do in order to get to the next level that aren't immediately beneficial. It's like a delayed gratification almost. And I think a lot of coaches can really identify with that. And then two, it's just a high level program that is operating out of Harvard Westlake. Kyle and the rest of the staff there do a fantastic job. And what they're able to get out of the program, I think, is super interesting. And I think it's going to be really cool for all levels of coaches to listen to because it inspired me with some new ideas. So I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you as the listener will as well. And thank you for listening. What's going on, collective listeners? On today's episode, we have Kyle Casey, who's a sport performance coach at Harvard Westlake School out in California. Thank you so much for coming on, Coach.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Oh man, me too. I mean, we even just in the pre-show, we're just kind of talking about a couple things that I think are going to be really interesting for our listeners to hear about, stuff that I definitely haven't covered in my time as the host. So I think our listeners are really going to enjoy it. Going from middle school to high school program, I think there's a lot of good stuff we can get into. But first off, can you kind of just give me your background in strength and conditioning, athletics, and then what brought you to your current position?
Yeah, so I grew up in a small town. I'm going to give a shout out to that small town. It's called Acton, California, because not very many people have heard about it. It's a town about 7,000 people. Went to high school, only graduated with like 95 kids. So really small there. Played football there, and that's really where my kind of passion for strength training started. I started from football. Yeah, we had to be in the weight room lifting weights, but we didn't really have a strength conditioning coach helping us out with anything. So we just kind of would go in there, me and my friends, and make up stuff on our own, and kind of see what works, what didn't, and all that stuff. We actually, would sneak into the weight room and try to, find a way in there because the coach just wasn't there to help us get in there. That's no fault of their own. They were just volunteer coaches. So, on the weekends, we would roll up to there and kind of shimmy open the window and try to break into the weight room and try to lift weights on our own. Kind of from there, after high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Or during high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Didn't know if I wanted to go to college. I probably wasn't going to go to college if the JC football coach didn't contact me and say, "Hey man, you want to come out here and play for our team?" And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know I could do this after high school." So I was just going to be working construction with my dad, and went out there. Started playing on the team in high school. Actually, my senior year of high school, they said, "Yeah, come out to practice." Me and my friend, and we'd come out to practice. And my senior year of high school, we're practicing lifting weights with college students and all that stuff. So, kind of from there, I was like, "Oh, right on." And then they're like, "What do you want to major in?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." So, kind of was like, I guess like being a PE teacher would be cool. So, got into kinesiology and all that stuff. And then football didn't really work out. Kind of got some injuries and was like, you know what, I need to focus on college and focus on getting a job right now. So I went on to Cal State Northridge. They have a pretty good kinesiology program there. So got in kinesiology. I still wasn't too sure what I wanted to do with kinesiology. So I contacted my advisor, and was like, what do I do? And he's like, physical therapy, athletic training, all that stuff. And I was like, all right, I'll think about physical therapy. So a year goes by and I'm like, I don't know about this. And I was watching the Packers game or a Packers spring game or something like that. And because I'm a huge Packers fan, and they made the announcement of all the coaches, and one of the coaches was a strength conditioning coach. So I'm like, what the heck is a strength conditioning coach? Looked it up and I was like, that's what I want to do right there. I want to be a strength coach. So went back to the advisor. I was like, how do I become a strength coach? So he hooked me up with an alum who was who worked at a community college out here as a strength coach. His name is Matt Hank. He brought me on as an intern. I was his intern for about a year and a half at a community college, and learning the ropes. He taught me everything. He let me run teams like almost right off the bat. Never been, in a weight room being a coach before. And he's letting me run warm-ups and all that stuff, like jump on the fly right there. You know, and then kind of from there, he knew someone at USC at the time. Chris Chase was over at USC and contacted him and says, I got this guy that could be a good intern for you. So I interviewed there and came on at USC and was a intern for about 6 months. So, and then after that, went on to USA Beach Volleyball. And then I decided, you know what? I think I want to be a high school strength coach. I was like, I'm seeing all these kids come in as freshmen in college, and I'm like, there's something missing here because they just like you have to teach them from the ground up in college. I'm like, they could be so much better if they learned all this stuff in high school. It'd be so much easier. They would be so much, more athletic, more capable inside the weight room. And if they learn this in high school. So I started looking up high school strength coach jobs. I was like, one of my spring breaks, I contacted a bunch of the private schools out here in LA and see if they have strength coaches. And I went and met with every day I made a meeting with a strength coach. And one of them was Harvard Westlake, where I'm at, was the director at the time. And I met with him and he's like, I don't got anything for you right now, but I'll keep you posted if I do. Sure enough, I went on, I got a job at another high school as like a part-time stipend, just working after school and all that stuff. Sure enough, year goes by and I see the posting on one of our college job sites and contacts him right away, send my resume. And I'm like, I'm super interested, brings me in for an interview, got the job as a part-time strength coach here. And sure enough, a year and a half goes by. The three strength coaches, full-time strength coaches here, all left for some reason or another. And, I was in the right place at the right time. So I was like, yeah, let me interview, talk to the ADs. I was like, let me interview. I know I could be good. They didn't give it to me right off the bat because I was still young. They're like, yeah, just hang out as a part-time coach. We don't want to give it to you yet. They haven't hired new strength staff in 10 years. So they wanted to make sure they get this right. So I'm like, I was kind of bummed at the time. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to show these guys that that they're going to want me. I'm going to show them that I should be here. I belong here. And I started working. I was working with the football team. I was working with all the programs, working 12-hour days here as a part-time coach. And I just showed them how hard I work. I probably wasn't ready for a full-time position, but I just showed them, you know what, I can do this, and I could learn on the fly, and I could be your guy. So from there, they hired me like 6 months later. They already brought in a director. I wasn't ready to be a director, who's my current director here. He brought in a director and another person, and I was the third person. And from there, I've been working here for 8 years now, and loved every minute of it. So that's kind of my path through strength conditioning right now.
I mean, I love that story, though. I mean, that's such a, it's an inspiring piece, right? To be able to say, I didn't get the position I was looking for initially, but I still continue to work, and I still showed them that I do deserve to be here. And you say you weren't ready, but I mean, clearly you were.
Yeah.
On certain areas and in the ability to become a coach. And I think that one of the biggest things about actually getting the position is that you show them that you are capable of doing what they want to see, right? And so
Right.
you're able to come in and demonstrate, hey, I can work these 12-hour days, and I'm doing it on part-time coach's salary at this point. So I obviously I want that salary to match in the future, but at this point in time, like I can do these things that you're looking for, and I can be the person that you want me to be.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's fantastic. I'd love to dive deeper into that. One of the first things, though, that you brought up that's really interesting to me and I think is so crucial for every strength coach growing up is the making stuff up, as that process of when you're in high school of just, hey, I'm going to go in this weight room. I don't really have anybody who's showing me this. So I'm just going to do exactly what I want to do. Maybe do some extra cool workouts or throw in some certain things that, scientifically now you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. Like I front squatted every day for a year, and then, a great problem to have was I couldn't fit into any jeans. I specifically remember my senior year, like no jeans fit my waist and quad size, so like that's a great problem to have, right? But now I'm like, why does my lower back hurt all the time, right? It's because I had so many missed grooved reps that just cranked my back. But do you have any stories from that time, or anything that kind of makes you think back to that, or anything that was kind of egregious now that you would have done differently?
Yeah, I would say, well, starting in high school when I was just training myself, you say you did front squats every day. Me and my friends did bench press every day. So, we're doing bench press. Sure, we got some lower body stuff, but we'd like to go on the machines, and do the lower body stuff because we didn't know how to squat. We didn't know how to do all that stuff. And we were smart enough then to be like, maybe we shouldn't do this and, screw up our backs and stuff. But man, bench pressing all day really screwed up my shoulder. And I'm still paying for that right now. That's the reason why I stopped playing football. I was like, man, my shoulder just hurts all the time and stuff. And then finally, I'm able to like know some stuff to do some physical therapy on it and make it feel better, do some mobility work. But that's something back then. And then for my coaching career, like starting off, like, you said that, you were ready to do it. Man, like when I started, I look back, I was like, I wouldn't have even hired me at the time. Like, and now I would, but I look back, I'm like, man, how did I get by? How did I get by with the stuff that I was doing at the very beginning as a strength coach? And, to now I'm like, man, I've grown so much and I'm still growing. I call myself, I'm still a young strength coach in this world. So, and kind of some stuff, that's kind of some stuff that I would do. I think I'm trying to think back, but like me and my friend, we got 24-hour fitness, a membership like everybody does when we first, and we went there and we'd go to 24-hour fitness before we went to football practice and for college. And we would just do the machines like all day. We'd just do all the leg machines, every machine. We just walk around and just do all the machines. And I look back at that. I was like, man, I wish I had a strength coach telling me what to do because we had the buy-in. We had the buy-in to do that. But if I had a strength coach for me, like who knows what would have happened? I don't think I was athletic enough to play Division I football, and all that stuff. But who knows? I might have played a little bit of Division I, played maybe probably Division II or III for sure, and got my college paid for and all that stuff. Wouldn't be in debt for college and stuff. So who knows?
Oh man, the what ifs I love to play as well too. I mean,
Yeah,
because seriously, it makes a difference. I'll never forget being at the YMCA, and I read one of there was a guy I had beef with who worked at the YMCA. And I'm sure it was my fault. Like looking back, like I don't know what I did, but I'm sure I was annoying. I did something. I probably dropped the dumbbells too much or something like that because it was definitely a bad habit I had. But he was. I remember looking at his bio one day because he was a personal trainer there, and he talked about being a strength coach for the Detroit Tigers organization at some point, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's going to be incredible to talk with and everything. And I remember bringing up my workout program because he'd see me, I see him there every day, and I brought it up and he was like, I could see the wheels turning in his head of like, how am I not going to crush this kid's entire hopes and dreams because it's the worst workout plan I've ever seen. Like, I'm doing like Arnold's advanced programs, in his encyclopedia of bodybuilding with zero performance enhancing drugs, not even whey protein, and
yeah,
I could see him just freaking out at this, way too much volume on all those things. But that's the stuff that makes you love the weight room,
hmm
and like I'll never forget like the first time I couldn't sit down in my car because my legs were way too sore. It's those things that's like if you're a little sick in the head, like it keeps you coming back. It keeps you really excited to be a strength coach and continue on the path of at least lifting for sure.
right, exactly.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, that's always a fun process. I always like talking with coaches about that when they've initially kind of experienced that because it's super fun for me. Another question I have: how'd you become a Packers fan all the way in California?
Well, in Los Angeles, we haven't had a team since '96. I mean, we recently got we got two teams now, which is freaking crazy out here. But like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old when Brett Favre won the Super Bowl with the Packers, and I remember that's my first football memory was him running down the field. He had his hands up in the air, fingers up in the air. I'm like, dude, that like guy loves the freaking sport. He loves football. Like, I'm gonna be a Packers fan. And they're a good team to root for right there. There's a lot of Packers fans out there, so we didn't have a team, and I became a Packers fan. And I've, sure, I like the Rams because I live in Los Angeles, so it's like the Rams are cool, Chargers are cool, or whatever. But man, they play my Packers. I'm a Packers fan, so the Packers are coming to LA this year, and I'm already looking for tickets. So yeah, and
That's awesome.
I freaking love them. So they're my team right there.
Brett Favre made a lot of people a Packers fan, and then a lot of people not a Brett Favre fan anymore later in his career. But I mean, I
Exactly.
had the exact same experience for sure. I loved watching Brett Favre growing up.
Yeah.
Um, so one other thing that you mentioned too was your USA beach volleyball experience. I think
Yep.
that's super interesting. It's something I really haven't talked with any coach yet. Could you kind of just talk me through your experience there, and what were some key things that stood out to you?
So yeah, I was an intern there. So I went there as a brief, probably 6 months there. And I saw the opening. I was like, that'd be pretty cool. Like get some professional or some Olympic level experience to see if that's something a path that I want to go. So I went there, and the really cool thing is like beach volleyball is somewhat new. So trying to like communicate with these athletes and like figure out how the sport is for coming from a guy that played football and grew up in the desert with no sand or mountains with no sand and no beach volleyball and no ocean near us. It was like, how's this sport? And I went there, and a lot of the athletes that I figured out like were didn't start off as beach volleyball. Either they and some of them started off as like baseball players, not even volleyball players, and it was pretty cool to hear like one of them like, yeah, I started off as baseball, and then I just started playing this on the side at the beach with my friends, and I turned out to be pretty good at it, and they discovered that, oh, maybe this is my sport, and then they're playing in the Olympics someday. And it's like I see them on TV playing for the Olympics, and then the work ethic that those athletes have is like, it's amazing. Sure, it's beach volleyball, and they kind of got the stigma. It's a beach sport. Chill on the ocean and stuff. No, they have the same work ethic as any other professional or D1 athlete that I've worked with, and that was pretty cool to see with those athletes. And it was like I was still very green in the strength conditioning world. So very green, and like how you approach these athletes. The guy that I was working for, Anthony Darmiento, who I think works in the NBA with basketball now, he kind of, that was one thing that he taught me, how to approach athletes. And like, sure, you see them maybe doing a certain exercise a certain different way, you shouldn't approach them right away, because you may screw up with their mind, depending on what time of the year it is. You screw up their mindset and all that stuff, and they think like, oh man, I've been doing this exercise all wrong for all these times. What I've been doing in here. So it's like how you approach these athletes. I remember one time I did that. I went up to the guy and I'm like, hey, you're clean. Looks like crap. And like I just said it like that. I was like, and he did. It didn't look very good and stuff. But the way I said it, like, really screwed with the athlete's mind. So like, really, that athlete mindset was one thing that I took away. And then the guy intern, he really taught me a lot of things about strength training. Would like sit down with me and like was really the first person to like sit down with me and like talk through, what is strength, what is a muscle contraction, what is this, and we would sit there. And I remember, because I would have to drive. It's LA, so traffic's like crazy, and I would have to drive back, and it would take me like, if I left at a certain time, it would take me like an extra hour to get home. And he's sitting there, and I didn't want to interrupt him and be rude, but I'm like, dude, I got to get on the road, because otherwise I'm going to be on the road for like 3 hours, But it was really cool. He would sit there, and like I was his first ever intern. So he's super excited, like teaching me all this stuff. And um, it was really an eye opening experience for me. But it also like taught me, this isn't the field that I want to be in. Like the Olympic sports, everybody thinks, oh, you want to train Olympic athletes, that's the top of the line. And at the time I did, and I was like, no, I think high school is still a position for me. So that was really like a eye opening experience for me, and I was an experience that I was really glad I did.
Well, it's so funny you mentioned that, because I feel like every strength coach listening to this podcast can identify with being late to something because a coach just had repeatedly talked and just kept going and going and going. I mean, there's a coach I can think of specifically in my head right now. I can see myself in his office chair just talking with him like, man, I got to get to class. Like,
Yeah.
I have to go. Like, and you try to say, like, yeah, I got to get out of it. And he's like, no, but one more thing. You get stuck, and you're just like, oh my gosh. I mean, but the USA volleyball experience as a whole, I think, is super interesting in the way you viewed it and the way you approached it as well, right? Is taking things and understanding, maybe this isn't the field that you're necessarily looking for, but this still is an internship experience. So there's ways to learn, exactly like you talked about with the athlete's mindset, or learning from those specific coaches who are willing to teach you. Because I know of other internship experiences where, coaches haven't been willing to take that time and invest in it, and
Yeah.
so that's what makes it awkward too, because they're being really polite, giving you their time, so you don't want to tell them, hey, dude, I got to go. But
Yeah,
Uh,
but like I'm glad you bring that up about the internship like being important. And I would say I wouldn't have this. I might not have this job that I have today if it wasn't for that internship. So, like when I got here, they needed someone to run our volleyball programs, and because I had that on my resume, they're like, "Oh, you must be a volleyball guy," and like far from it right there, just because I worked with them there. So I came here and like they're like, we needed somebody to, transform our volleyball programs here at this school. And so they brought me in, and that was the reason why I got my foot in the door was because of that internship experience right there. And like without that, I may have not been here today. So yeah,
That's just such a common theme throughout all strength and conditioning is the small connections, the thing that you don't, the things you don't really realize really matter and come
hmm
back later in your career to help you out.
yeah.
Um, in that transition to high school, you spoke about that seemed to be your calling. That was the area that you specifically wanted to invest your time in and use that as your career path. You know, you talked about understanding the need for athletes to have good technique, good understanding of the weight room, and even with yourself, right? If you had a strength coach who could show you those things, maybe your path had been a little bit different. What were some other things that called you to the high school realm specifically?
I mean, for one thing, I got to stay in California and more of a family life. I think was a big thing. You see at Division One football level, and it's getting a little bit better at the Olympic side and basketball side, but the Division One football level, like they year to year, you never know where you're going to be. You never know if you're going to be in the same city, same state. So building that family life was very important for me from a young age. It's like I knew that I wanted to have a family, I wanted to have kids, and I wanted to have a stable life for them. So one big thing was, high school can provide that for me, and it has provided that for me. I have a wife and I have a young daughter right now, and we bought our first home last year. So it's like, and without this job, I probably wouldn't be able to do that. Going from state to state, I talked to some of my you know, old internship, the people in charge and stuff, and it's like, man, you've been in three different places in the past 5 years, like, and it's not even in the same like state. So that was a big thing for me to go to high school. And that wasn't the only thing, but that was a big part of it.
Well, I mean, it makes a really big difference, right? And I'll never forget telling my parents when I was living in Tennessee, which was already 9 hours away. I'm moving even further away to Lubbock, Texas, right? And,
Yeah.
and I'm a big family person as well, so it's hard to not necessarily have that control over your destiny. Whereas in high school, it can be a little bit more controllable. What does your day kind of look like as a high school strength coach? Kind of just walk me through a typical day.
Yeah, so right now, I mean, it changes day after day. So, sometimes I'll be here at 8 in the morning. We're not allowed to start any earlier than 8 anymore. We used to be 6 a.m., but they thought that the kids needed a little bit more sleep. So which was good for us as strength coaches. We're always big on recovery and sleep. So the earliest we can start is 8, and that's our block schedule. So the first block is 8 o'clock, but it all rotates. So sometimes we don't have a class at 8 o'clock. So sometimes I don't have to be here until 11 o'clock, 10:30, something like that. And then I'm usually here till about 6:30 at night. So the last team gets out because we also have teams that lift after school. So about 6:30, and then we also have the middle school. So we rotate at the middle school. We each get about once or twice a week at the middle school. So if we're at the middle school, the classes start at 10 and they end about 1. So we teach middle school classes. Part of the PE curriculum is strength conditioning. So we teach about 4 classes every time we're there. From there, I come back down to the upper school. So it's 2 different campuses, and I train my afternoon teams until about 6 o'clock. So it kind of varies based on it's kind of like I do the scheduling here, so it's kind of like a mad scientist trying to schedule everybody out. We got 4 full-time strength coaches, 2 part-time strength coaches, so trying to schedule everybody out, make sure everybody's where they need to be on a rotating high school block schedule is pretty. It's like I'm like a mad scientist when I make up the schedule. It's pretty crazy. So, it varies. Like it's cool because some days I don't have to be here till 11 o'clock. So it's like I get to spend some time with my daughter in the morning, take her to daycare, and do all that stuff. So it's pretty flexible on that. But then there's other times like yesterday, I get here at 6:30 a.m. to work out, and then I don't get home till about 7:30 at night. So, you still have those strength coach hours that we all pride ourselves on, but there's also some flexibility there.
I mean, I think one of the wildest parts about what you just said is you have 6 strength coaches for the high
Yeah,
school and middle school programs. I
yeah,
mean, that's incredible.
yeah.
How does that investment come about? I mean, because you hear of schools struggling to even get one.
Yeah, so we're very blessed here. We're in a very affluent community, so and the school has a lot of money to spend on, and luckily they want to spend it on strength conditioning, spend it on sports performance, and that was far before I got here. So yeah, before I got here, they had three full-time strength coaches. I was one of the part-time strength coaches coming in, so they built on this, but we just made it even better when we got here. They added a fourth full-time strength coach who's also the wrestling coach. So he's kind of part-time strength coach, part-time wrestling coach. Added a fourth, and then we're like, we need two more part-timers, and they gave it to us. So yeah, we're pretty blessed here. It's kind of like anything we want, they usually get for us. So which isn't your normal high school. So it's a pretty cool place to be.
No, but exactly the key point you just brought up right there, right, is not some schools have the money to do it, right, but then
Yeah,
they're not going to actually spend the investment and
yeah,
understand the importance in it. And even coaches I've spoken with in the past on the podcast, sorry, I'm talking too fast. They have expressed it isn't even really about developing Division 1 athletes or Division 2 or Division 3. It's about teaching kids who may not ever have the chance to use the weight room outside of this, how to use the weight room, how it can
right.
benefit you. And we all, I mean, as strength coaches, know how important exercise is and how much it can change somebody's life, right? And I mean, for me personally, I was not going to be a Division 1 athlete. I tried to walk on track and field, and then they cut the team. So I was like, all right, that's the end of my dream right there, right?
Yeah.
But it made me into a strength coach because I fell in love with the weight room. So I just think that's so cool. It really excites me to see a school invest that much within to the strength and conditioning department, because it can help not just the athletes who are trying to become athletes in the collegiate level, but people who are just trying to get better as human beings.
Right. I always tell my athletes, from the middle school, high school level, I tell them, hey guys, like, I know not all of you are planning on playing sports later on in life, like in college and stuff, but I want you guys to look back in, 6, 7 years and be in that rec center of a college and be like, and know how to use the weight room, know how to use the machines, know how to use all this stuff and be like, you know what, Coach Casey taught me this. Like, I can do this. Like, I want you to be capable of training yourself and being fit for life and being healthy. Because that's one big problem we have in this country right now is obesity and healthcare. So I want to be part of that change that some of these kids can see, and maybe I'll affect somebody, even if it's just one of them. That's huge for me. If it's just one of them that I change their life and they get into a lifetime of being fit and being healthy, that's huge for me.
I mean, seriously, one life change is more
Yeah,
than enough for your own lifetime. So, I mean, but
exactly.
it'll already be past that point. So, do each of you as coaches have your own sports, or do you kind of share sports, or are you assigned to specific teams?
Yeah, so we run it like a college. So like I am in charge of football, girls basketball, track and field, and then I help out with baseball, and I'll help out wherever I needed. My boss is in charge of basketball, baseball, girls soccer. So yeah, we each have assigned teams and all that stuff, and then we share middle school levels. Which is cool because we all collaborate on how we run around the middle school, which helps us collaborate on how we run our programs here, and we all end up running our programs pretty similar just because of that. So yeah, we run it like a college, and we each have our own assigned teams.
That's awesome, dude. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
jazzed up about that. I mean,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sure our listeners are waiting for me to get on a different topic because I'm just perplexed. I mean, my mind is blown here. But I mean,
yeah.
it's also good stuff for other high schools to hear, right? Is that it
Right,
can be run at this level, at a high school specific level. It can be done, and
right.
I think that's what strength coaches are advocating for. Now, you talked about development. You talked about making sure that when athletes do go to that Division 1, Division 2, Division 3 level, they're prepared. They're in the weight room so they can continue to progress. What are your kind of key points of development coming from middle school to high school? Because that's 6 years that you could potentially have with an athlete. How do you kind of develop them from middle school to that high school level, and then allow them to kind of continue to be successful at the collegiate level?
Yeah, so a big thing for us is we always think this. We want to leave stuff in the tank for the college strength coaches. So we don't want to overdevelop them. We don't want them to, like the saying, peak too early. So that's a big thing that we have in mind to start. Now I'm going to start from the middle school program, just so you guys kind of see the big picture. So in seventh grade, the first semester, um, every single seventh grader has 2 weeks in the weight room. And they rotate through for the whole first semester. So every single seventh grader has 2 weeks. That's their time where they get to figure out if they want to take the weights class, because not everybody, we don't have space for everybody. So if they want to be part of the weight track, if that's something they want to do, so they get 2 weeks. Second semester, the seventh graders choose between the weights track, which meets every third day, um, or the non-weights track where they get to do PE, just play sports all day and just have fun and stuff. Usually the athletes, if our, upper school coaches, varsity coaches are like, this athlete needs to be in the weights track, if they're an athlete, they get first dibs. They're going to be in there, and whether they like it or not, they're probably going to be in there. Um, and then the rest of them, it's like, okay, if we have space for you, you can join the weights track. So they're in there, and we start them in like seventh grade. It's a lot of just teaching them how to use the weight room. So teaching them how to be in the weight room safely, telling them what not to touch, what you can touch. It's basically don't touch anything unless I say so, is the type of thing, because they'll come in there and they want to hang on the lat pull downs machines. They'll be lifting these weights, and it's like doing bicep curls in the corner, and doing their swing thing. It's like, what are you guys doing? So it's like, don't touch anything. You guys can go grab a foam roller and foam roll until we take attendance. And then we kind of have we start off, we're doing a lot of body weight stuff, a lot of counterweight squats, a lot of core stability stuff for the seventh graders. Then we'll move on to goblet squats, a lot of dumbbells. They're not touching a barbell the whole seventh grade year. Um, and then they get into eighth grade. It's kind of the same kids. Some kids may drop out. We may get some new kids in there that want to join, and we kind of start them over again. We're starting them from that block one, that phase one, and counterweight squats again, stick hinges, body weight stuff. We're going to go upstairs. We're going to do some jump roping. We're going to do some agility tag, like, running around, kind of having some fun, do some obstacle courses. And then we start about the second semester of the eighth grade year. We start getting a little bit more serious, because we need to prepare these kids for ninth grade. We need to prepare these kids for this summer. The football kids, the water polo kids, they're going to be in the weight room with the varsity team. Like, we need to make sure that they know what they're doing. So we start teaching them front squats. We start teaching them how to do hex bar deadlifts, start how to set up the racks correctly, how to move correctly. And then by the end of their eighth grade year, and we're actually starting that right about now, is we have assessments for each kid. And we tell them, we say, if you can't do this, you're going to be on a different program when you get to ninth grade. And the assessment is like, there's 4 exercises. It's things that we want them to be able to do at the high school level. It's just front squat, hex bar deadlift. I think one of the things is a rear foot elevated split squat body weight. And I want to say, I'm trying to remember, because we've been playing around with, I think it was a TRX or a ring row, was one of them. So in each one of those, it's a technique based assessment. So it's not about how much weight. So like the front squat, I think it's like 85 pounds for the boys, 55 for the girls. If you're able to do 10 reps correctly, and then we'll sit there as a coach and we'll watch them, and there's 4 things we base on a front squat. Is your spine in the correct alignment? Is your depth there? Are your heels coming off the ground? Are your elbows up? And if you get any of those wrong within those 10 reps, and they're not, we give them about 6 out of 10. If they get 6 out of 10 right, we're going to pass them or whatever. But if you get any of those things wrong, like, you have to do it again next week. And we circle them, and we'll tell them what they need to work on. And later on, like, you'll start seeing them come in on their own time. And it's like, what are you guys doing in here? Oh, we got to work on this because we're not going to pass, And If they don't pass, it does nothing to your grade. Absolutely nothing to your grade. They're going to pass 8th grade, all this stuff, but they're freaking out because they want to pass. We give them a red wristband. They want to get the wristband, and then we give them a sheet, their own sheet that they get to work out with the 9th graders. So the 9th graders are still at the middle school. And it's like they get to go over there and do the workout with the 9th graders and stuff. And, they'll literally coach, I need to get that wristband. And my years of being here, maybe if you don't pass that, it's usually on the kid. It's usually they didn't give it their all and stuff. But these kids think they're not going to pass it. I'm like, don't worry, guys. You guys will pass it if you guys give me your effort. But it's amazing how how driven these kids get for that stinking wristband and that sheet. Yeah, and then from there, 9th grade is still on the middle school campus, but they do bust them down to the upper school campus. So we have 9th grade block 9 lift. So it's all the 9th graders from the teams at the upper school. They get to do their lift at the middle school in the off season, so they can go home after that. They don't have to bust down, and that's a little bit easier because it's a little bit technique based lift, and we could get some one-on-one time with our 9th graders, because we also get some transfers in here who start in the 9th grade who we have to start over again. And start from, you may have lifted at your other school, but we need to make sure that you know what you're doing here. And then from, 10th grade is still a little bit of learning base, but by 11th and 12th grade, you're training to train right now. You're starting to train. We want you ready. If you're planning on playing in college, we want you ready for your college trained coach, not by strength wise. Sure, we want you to be strong, but we don't need you squatting over 400 pounds, doing all this stuff. We want you to be able to do this. So your strength coach at the college level is like, man, where'd you learn how to lift? And you get to start off with the sophomores in college or something like that. So that's kind of like what our goal is going through those steps.
What an awesome process. I mean, seriously, first of all, as a college training coach, thank you, because that makes my life a lot easier, right? But, I love what you say about not advancing it too quickly, not,
Mm-hmm.
leaving stuff in the tank for the collegiate strength coach. Because sometimes, and I never want to judge a program, right? Because I'm not a part of it. I don't know, maybe it's the AD coming down and saying, hey, we got to do, the most advanced triphasic form of training and do all this stuff, right? But sometimes I'll see posts on social media like the most advanced style of training that I wouldn't even use for my seniors in college, and
Yeah.
it can be frustrating because I mean, exactly like kind of the theme that we talked about earlier, right? Is what got you so excited to come back to the gym was all of a sudden your bench press is up 10 pounds. And then now you're sitting next to your buddy and you're shouldering him and you're like, yeah, I can bench more than you now, right? And then you
Yep.
guys
Yep.
keep competing. And it's this gradual, continual progress. And, understanding like, there's specific markers and there's specific ways to build strength and do these things that kind of inspire the love for strength and conditioning. And,
Right.
I think it's cool to, for athletes get exposed to high levels of training, right? But in my opinion, it's just my belief that nothing beats getting technically better at a lift and then getting stronger at it, because you can just see that progress. And, it's what I communicate to my athletes all the time is the weight room doesn't understand, anything about your cultural background, who you are as a human being. You can be the worst person in the world. It's going to treat you the same as the best person in the world, right? And so it's so unbiased, and it really
Right.
it gives you exactly what you put in. And so your exact result is exact output is exactly the same as the input. And that's what I love about the weight room. And it seems like that really is kind of the theme of your process, is teaching them technique, teaching them how to be safe, and then really just kind of developing them, building strength, and then allowing them to kind of progress and just get better at lifting, which is to me the key of strength and conditioning.
Right. And I love that you said that about the technique and getting better at the technique, because some of our kids, we do have test days and we do test their max strength. Because if you don't do that with a high school football player, they're going to be like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Because they love to see themselves get stronger. But some of them may have not got stronger. But I'm like, look at this video from the first time you tested this back squat. And look at your depth, look at all this stuff. So you, by your technique getting better, you got stronger. And I tell them that, and they start, oh, okay, I see that, coach. And I like to take a lot of videos. I like to take a lot of videos of my kids because I get them for 6 years. So by the time they're a senior, I get to hey, look at you when you're in 7th grade, And so I like to take videos, show them that stuff, and then we still we pride ourselves on being strong. I have 800-pound t-shirts that I give out when they get clean bench and squat. It's like when you get 800 pounds combined, you get a t-shirt, and they freaking love that because it's the same thing as like getting the wristband in the middle school. It's like this age, it's like, I don't want no wristband. I don't want a freaking t-shirt, you know? And then we do have record boards on there and stuff, but that's kind of for the kids right there, the data for the kids on max strength and stuff. But we do our programming based on our force plate data. And that's a big thing for us because force plates you could test every single week if you wanted to and stuff like that. So that's kind of on us. We'll do the max strength once every, maybe 2 times a year so they can see themselves get stronger. And then we'll build in like max or like, they'll get PRs, which I'll know that they'll probably get PRs built into their programming if you're here every day and stuff like that, just to give them a little bit more, reason to come and reason to come to the weight room and come back, because that's a big thing in high school. They don't have to be here. So they're not on scholarship. They don't have to be here. So I got to find reasons for them to want to come back, So, yeah.
That's a great point, because I always just love putting my hand on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, big dog, you're with me today." There's no leaving. You're stuck with me for the day.
Yeah.
But I'm going to start giving out red wristbands. I think in our weight room, we'll make it yellow for App State. But I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
clearly it's a motivating factor, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's fantastic. And the best part about technique too is, can you squat pain free now, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
when you do these reps over and over and over again, you may see somebody coming super far forward on their toes, and now the heels are up, and they're like, "My knees hurt when I squat." And I'm like, "No wonder." I mean, because you just put the highest tension I've ever seen on a patellar tendon. But I mean, it makes that difference, the technique development, and that must be really cool, because I would love to see a video of how I first started lifting. I'm
Yeah.
sure it was absolutely awful. I could never really figure it out. I was a guy who had to do reps after reps after reps after reps,
Right.
to get my body right. So I would love to have seen some videos in the past. So I'm sure your athletes are glad you take those. The force plate data is so interesting to me. What are the main tests that you use at the high school level?
So we use the main test is counter movement jump, hand on the hips. That's the main test, and because that's easy to do. We can do it with every single one of our athletes. And this year we started doing it with our 7th and 8th graders as well, and because that's data that I'm pretty sure nobody else has is force plate data on 7th and 8th graders. And then another thing that I'm starting to is the isometric mid-thigh pull for my football players, kind of because you could definitely see how strong they are, and they can see a squat. If you're just not a good squatter, some people it's just not in their cards for them. You're never going to be a great squatter. And they may not think that they're strong enough. Yeah, but the isometric mid-thigh pull, that don't lie. You don't have to be really that great at it to know that you're getting stronger. So I could show them that. And then from like the counter movement jump, sorry, I'm bouncing around here. From the counter movement jump, we just look at the cool thing about our force plates. We can look at pretty much anything we want, but a big thing, jump height is a big thing for kids. Like they want to see how high they can jump. But for football, we'll look at jump momentum. Because I tell these kids one thing in football, you want to gain weight, like big thing. But when you gain weight, your vertical jump is probably not going to go through the roof, especially in football and stuff. So the jump momentum still tells you are jumping higher, but you gained weight. So if this stays the same, this vertical jump, you look at the jump momentum, it's like, yeah, you're getting better, you're becoming more powerful. And then in season, we're kind of looking at and it's still learning about force plates and all that stuff, but we're looking at the MRSI to see fatigue and see if they're practicing too much. We haven't got to the point that we can go up to a coach and be like, hey, maybe we should lay off this guy. We haven't got to a point yet because we're still learning about it, but it's something that we're trying to look into a little bit more, because that's really big at the high school level, because these kids play not just their high school team, they play for AAU, they play for their club teams. They're playing on different teams throughout the year and stuff. So just measuring fatigue is a big thing that we're trying to come up with something easy, because we tried putting on GPS stuff, and that just don't work at the high school level. That's too much. That's a lot of work to do at the high school level. So, the force plates is something easy. They come in, you get your 3 jumps, like once. We try to do it at least once a month. You get your 3 jumps, then we can take a look at all these different variables that, we can adjust our training. You can adjust at practice, something like that, to try to help these kids not get injured, and all these overuse, because that's a big thing in high school and youth sports right now is overuse injuries.
It's an epidemic. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously, it's awful, and especially it started with baseball,
Hmm.
and I remember my sister was talking about my nephew, and he turned 12, and she was like, "Yeah, a coach wants him to play year round," and I was like, "Please, please, I'll never give you advice on anything because it's your life and you live it. Please do not let." My nephew play year-round baseball. Like
Yeah.
he's gonna have Tommy Johns by the time he's like 16. And it's
Yeah.
just gonna get absurd. And now it's but it's evolved with other sports. Obviously, basketball with AAU. That's one of the biggest recruiting circuits. Is people get noticed at the Peach Jam every year in Atlanta, right?
Hmm.
And all these things are super important. So the overuse aspect is really interesting. What I love about what you brought up though too is it's a critical thinking aspect of it, right? And how to look at data because I can't tell you how many times we have weight gain guys come in here because everybody in basketball is a weight gain guy. There's probably 2 weight loss guys and about 7 or 8 weight gain guys. And when they come in, they really lose the understanding that if you gain 15 pounds over 6 months and your vertical jump only went
Yeah.
up an inch and a half, your vertical jump has actually gone through the roof, right? But
Hmm.
you just have now gained 15 pounds on top of that. So it's harder for you. There's more mass. Imagine you jumping with a weight vest on when you're at the same weight, just 15 pounds more.
Exactly.
But that applies to so many different things within strength and conditioning, right? In season, a guy may squat the same as he did out of season, and he's going to say, I can't believe I haven't, gotten any better. And it's like, dude, you also played 2 games this week. You're absolutely exhausted. You're in the middle of finals. It might be December as well. And all these things are battling against you, and now you're still squatting the same weight. And so I think that's a really critical aspect of what you're doing there is teaching these athletes how to look at data, how to understand exactly, what are other factors that go into this, because as you and I both know, it's not a one factor deal. It's multifactorial every single time.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, man. I love it. I was going to ask about the GPS units because I'm like, if these guys have force plates, they're definitely trying to do something with GPS units, but that's got to be a pain in the ass.
No,
There's
no. When
no
I first
way.
got here, and maybe it's because I was still young and still like learning about all this stuff, but man, like trying to convince a high school athlete to put one of those GPS things on their chest, it's like, especially from the boys' side, it's like, coach, what are you trying to do? And then like making sure they turn it on, and then making sure they return it, and then making sure that gets washed every single night is
No
absolute.
shot.
There's no shot,
No
and maybe
shot.
I think from the athletic training standpoint, I think they for return to play purposes, some of our athletes they still put them on there a little bit. I've seen them use it, but yeah, for every single athlete to see that, I was like, there's no way. So the force plate has been huge for that. So we're still
That's
learning
awesome.
on how we're going to do that. It's hard, and then also you don't think about the GPS like these kids don't just play here. So it's like, sure, we're getting data from here, but then like tack on their club team, like for soccer players, their club team and basketball as well, tack on that. It's like, we're not even seeing the whole picture yet. So why are
Yep.
we even using that? So
Oh,
yeah,
thank goodness. I'm so glad because I hate nothing more than collecting data that doesn't help.
yeah,
I'm sure it would come up and help at some point, but I'll never forget a coach trying to convince a guy to put on the sports bra. He's like, he called it a sports bro. The guy
yeah.
was like, "Nah, that's not working, dude. I'm not putting that thing on."
Yeah. And then
It's
and then our football coach as well. It's like, what the heck are you having my boys
yeah.
get into? It's like, what are we doing here?
Oh
So
yeah, man,
yeah.
that's a tough combo. That's a tough, and nothing I love more too is when I read comments of like you'll see off-season training pictures or something of like Tennessee football, and they'll have the catapult on,
Yeah.
and everybody's like, man, why are these guys wearing sports bras? And like some guys will be out there. I think it's corrective for shoulder blades or something. You're like, no, no, not even close. Oh
Exactly.
my
It's it's
goodness.
it's so much fun having conversations when you're at home watching a football game and they may show highlights of them at practice, and like somebody that has no idea in the sports performance strength
Yeah,
conditioning and trying to have conversations with them, it's like no, don't worry about it. It's helping them get better.
yeah, yeah. No, it's exactly it every time. It's a tool. It's a good tool.
Yeah, exactly. Real quick, I used to try to explain it to them, and it just don't work out that way.
No, 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 no. I mean, but it's just good. Just brush it off real quick and then ask where the bean dip is.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
exactly.
well, dude, I've really enjoyed this. I mean, it's really, really interesting for me to hear about such a high level program, especially at the high school level. I think with a lot of schools that are not doing it right that I've seen, this is a school that's doing a fantastic job. And it's just so interesting for me to hear. And then to hear your personal journey and the perseverance and the ability to, not get down and continue to apply for this position and then eventually see it pay off. I think that's so awesome. It's an energizing conversation for me, so I appreciate it. I'm in week. I mean, it's February. We're recording this on February 21st. I'm exhausted. I got 2 weeks of basketball left, so I'll be honest. I came in like, woo, but now you energized me. You got me ready for the rest of the day. I'm about to bench press, probably in honor of you now, with how much you bench press when you were younger. But
Oh,
uh,
nice.
thank you so much for coming on. If somebody does want to reach out to you, if they want to kind of learn a little bit more about your program or hear a little bit more about your story, what would be the best way to do that?
Probably just my Instagram. It's at Coach Casey Strength. So just at Coach Casey Strength. It's on my Instagram. You can see what we do here. See what some of the stuff that we do here. I post a lot of stuff on there, and we also have at HW Sports Performance page.
Wow.
So we have an Instagram page for that too. So
Awesome.
those would
Well,
be the two best. Yep.
that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time.
No, this has been great. Thank you, Connor.
Absolutely.